Yeah, guys. So let's move on to our second session. It will be done by Azkar Moulana. He's a software engineer at 99S Technology, and he's going to be talking about developing next generation application with AWS Amplify. Azkar, let me hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. And let me share my screen first. Yeah, all right, guys. Welcome you all to another brand new session on the AWS Amplify. Today we're going to be looking at how we can develop next generation web and mobile applications using AWS Amplify. So basically, how you can take the advantage of Amplify to build your application rapidly without compromising on the things that are really important in the application development life cycle, like the version controlling, all these security pipelines, and code reviews and yeah, things like that. So for those who don't know me, my name is Azkar Maulana. I'm a software engineer working at 99X Technology. Yeah, and this is going to be the outline for the day. A bit of deep dive. Then we're going to talk about the challenges that you come across with the modern application development, and how Amplify can address your problems. And then how can I do continuous delivery with AWS, the Amplify console, as a DevOps track. And finally, we can have a look at, so what are the new things added to the Amplify recently. Yeah, all right. So the Amplify was introduced in AWS reInvent 2017. So initially as a open source JavaScript library for to develop web and mobile applications, to actually the these cloud connected mobile applications, web and mobile applications easily. So as you all know, AWS offers a broad set of tools and services to support the development workflows for the iOS, Android, React Native, and front end web developers. So with the all these the speed and reliability of this AWS infrastructure, you can easily scale your applications from prototype to millions of user applications easily. So actually, a few years back, I think before the launch of this Amplify, a managed service called AWS Mobile Hub was used for the this cloud-enabled mobile applications, which also actually simplifies the process of building these building, monitoring, and maintaining this cloud-enabled infrastructure. But this actually do not give you provide you a specific way to provision and maintain mobile backends and secure hosting or the continuous delivery or things like that. So the Amplify was introduced as a solution for this. So now all the mobile hub functionalities are part actually moved to, it's a part of the Amplify. So in case if you have already an if you have an application which runs on the mobile hub, so also the AWS provides you a set of guidelines on how you can actually migrate your mobile hub project to the Amplify. So the Amplify comes, the entire platform comes as a complete platform for full stack serverless web and mobile application development. So it gives you the end-to-end solution for your full stack application development, from provisioning resources to version control, the automated code testing, and the production application deployments and things like that. So if your intention is to develop or build a modern cloud-centric web and mobile application easily, and if you want to offload the hassle of these the configuring and maintaining the backend infrastructure and services, also if the fast application deployment is development is your main factor, so Amplify is something that you really need to look into. So the Amplify, the is this entire platform we can categorize, or that comes in three aspects. So we have the framework, so which is an open source framework which provides you a set of easy to use libraries and set of UI components and a CLI tool to easily build backends and integrate it with your front end. And this the framework leverages set of the core cloud services that you can use to build your application backends, and these developer tools include set of tools like the Amplify console, uh, which helps you with the continuous deployment. Yeah, moving on to the framework part. So this framework actually that consists of three key components. We can say we have the CLI piece, and we have then the client libraries. So that's not only for the JavaScript to interact with AWS, like with databases, APIs, storage, or whatever it is, but also for the iOS and Android as well. And it comes with it also includes set of UI components. So we can say a platform specific UI components, whether you are using a mobile or web app or whatever it is. So it provides you easy to use components for scenarios, to implement scenarios like a sign up, sign in, or the multi-factor authentication flows in general. So also these components comes with the flexible cryptography and everything. So in case if you are so to make sure, so if you are to make sure the components that you pick from the Amplify, that consistently aligns with the rest of your application components. So and actually, if you're someone who's not much into the UI development but still want to be a part of this or stay in this the full stack ecosystem, so this is something so you really need to look into. Yeah, and also Amplify provides you another managed service for the continuous deployment called the Amplify console. So if you're ever doing single page applications on AWS with using S3, so this is something you absolutely need to look into. So we'll be looking into this in a while. So I have a separate slide for that. So for now, let's focus on only focus on this framework. Yeah, the Amplify CLI is the unified. It's a unified tool chain. So you can use CLI to create, integrate, and manage your AWS services and integrate it with your client application. So the CLI uses the cloud formation and nested stack to uh, create resources. With that, you can add or modify your configurations locally before you push them to the cloud. Also, the CLI supports the multiple environment uh, feature. With if you are when you're developing, you might engage with several environments. It could be a dev environment, or could be a QA, or it could be a production, or whatever it is. So when you initialize a project with the Amplify CLI, so you define your application backend, or actually your environment. So every environment is actually a container for the categories you added to your project. So it's each environment is individually runs in your we can say it's in AWS. So when you start a project with the Amplify CLI, so it looks more or less like this. So this is a common, the general for everyone is going to look at first. So you can initialize a new project with the command amplify init. So that creates an Amplify project for you locally, and then you can add API to your project, either a GraphQL API or a REST API, simply running the Amplify add API. And if you want to add authentication to your application, so you can simply run Amplify add auth. So it will add all these categories to your application locally. And when you want to run a local mock or local testing server for your API. So you can simply run Amplify mock command. So this will create a local entire API locally for you to test. Not only for the API, but also it launches you the DynamoDB locally for you, and it can also launch WebSockets in and all the things locally for you with the simple command amplify mock. And when you are done with your configuration, so you can publish all these things, or all these resources to the cloud by simply running the amplify push. And later, and when you if you want to update any of these categories, you can simply run amplify update, whatever the category name you want. So this the CLI simplifies all the entire build, the application development flows, so you can easily integrate, initialize, add category, add to services, and publish them to cloud with a single command. So you probably have noticed, or Amplify has, the AWS has a SAM CLI for the serverless, and the Amplify CLI, and we have the CDK and the AWS CLI and bunch of those things. So what makes the Amplify CLI unique here is it follows a convention over configuration. So which means, in order to add authentication, so you just need to run Amplify add auth, the command. So you don't need any upfront knowledge of Cognito and how to configure these things and how to wire all these things together. And later, if you want to change this configuration, you can do that. Yeah, the client library, so it looks more or less like this. This is simple Amplify AWS Cognito. So these client libraries give you, it gives you the use case centric and easy to use interfaces, enabling your client applications to easily interact with your the backend resources you provisioned. So it supports the the client, these libraries supports the interaction with both the resources you create using your CLI, or either it could be the resources that you have already created. And the libraries comes with the support for Android and iOS as well. So if you, in case if you are a native developer, and also for the JavaScript framework specific libraries and components for major, for frameworks like the Angular, React, and Vue, the things like that. And yeah, uh, so these are the services that you can build and interact with Amplify. So we have API service that allows to set up, uh, you can set up a complete end-to-end API, either REST or GraphQL, and you can add authentication easily with Amplify, so which uses AWS Cognito, and you can work with databases, and you can easily get up and running with Lambda, so from your front end without visiting your Amplify console. And if you are working with a web application and you want to publish it to live, so you can easily do it by using the CLI with the hosting services. And you can set up analytics through the Amazon Pinpoint. And for storage, it comes with, the Amplify comes with the built-in support for Amazon S3 to leverage the cloud scale storage to manage your the medias like photos, could be videos. You can manage them in a secure way, and many more, also many more services to be added here. So these are the basic services that you can interact with Amplify. And I think let's look at a couple of these services in detail, so to get a complete understanding of how Amplify, so how you can Amplify to manage these services. Yeah, authentication. So authentication is a simple process of telling your application who you are, and it's fairly a standard feature in almost all the applications. So even though it's a pretty common requirement, it can become rather complex to implement. So you need to, if you think about the development, so you need to sign in, sign up users, validate passwords and activation codes, and bunch of those things. And authentication with Amplify, so it makes it way more easier than you think. So with Amplify, you can create and configure Amazon Cognito resources for to sign in and sign up your users, and you can interact with these resources using the client libraries from your front end. So you can directly call your the resources you have provisioned, and it also provides you the pre-configured set of UI components to cover the scenarios like sign in, sign up, or the reset password, like the multi-factor authentication, or it can even do much complex, sophisticated scenarios like a time-based one-time passwords. So if you have ever worked with services like Google Authenticator, so you can implement all these complex, sophisticated scenarios for your application easily, and by only using couple of lines of code with the Amplify authentication auth feature. Yeah. Also, Amplify can let you manage and store the user-generated contents, including videos, audios, images, and all these PDFs files or CSVs and everything in a secure manner. So Amplify comes with the built-in support with the AWS, the Amazon S3, which helps you to manage this cloud scale storage effectively. And you can even create the private buckets, so if you want to give a more restricted access to your assets, so that even possible with these Amplify. So the amplifies the CLI and all the libraries that makes this all it makes all these things much more easier. Yeah, moving on to the another section, application development. The companies are now trying to become more and more agile, so they can innovate and respond to change faster. So this requires a different kind of approach, or different kind of techniques than what we used years ago. So applications nowadays need to scale it needs to scale quickly to respond millions of users, and it needs global availability, and also it needs to manage the petabytes or sometimes exabytes of data, and the most importantly, they respond in milliseconds. So we call these the modern applications, and they can go from web and mobile to IoT, ML, AI, AIML, AR, VR, and everything. So this is the architecture of traditional 3D application, 3D architecture. So if you have been developing with web application for a while, then you are familiar with this 3D architecture, where you have the presentation tier and application, and then we can divide into those tiers, and the data tier. And in here, so I have my load balancers, and also I have my instances, and I can set up auto scaling on them, so they can scale up and scale down when required. And there's a single sort of database backend. And when your application grows, and it start dealing with really heavy medias like the high res images and the videos, audios, and such sort of things, and then you can set up a CDN with CloudFront alongside your application. So this is the simple architecture of a traditional web application. Yeah, and then moving on to the modern single page application architecture. So we all know the single page rendering, application rendering is quite different than the typical multi-page application. So we do most of the things are done in the front end or in the client side. So if I'm doing everything in my front end, so I actually won't be needing an app server to handle the initial request to my web page. So instead, I can build all my HTML files, and I can build my JS bundle, and also I can build my CSS bundle, and I can put all them in the S3 bucket, and I can put a cloud front in front of that, so that globally caches it. Then I can load my application without an involvement of an app server. So now that an entire application is running, once it is once then now the entire application is running in my front end or in my client side, in JavaScript in the browser. So now instead of having an app server to communicate with backend, so I can what I can do is I can put all my logic in Lambda functions, and with an API gateway behind it. So now actually my application and my application all the application bundles and all those the static assets are served through this the S3 bucket statically, and then the and CloudFront is actually caching them globally. Now the actual communication of the state transfer is happening through API gateway with Lambda. So that's so with this architecture, so I don't need an involvement of an observer to handle my backend all the backend logics. So using the same techniques, I can directly communicate with the Cognito to authenticate my users. I can set up uh, analytics with the pinpoint, and I can directly upload my files and all the things to S3 bucket directly from my client. So without an involvement of an app server, so we don't just need to go through an app server and just upload all the storage, all the things to the storage. Instead, I can directly communicate through my front end. So this is the simplest architecture of a single page application that relies on the AWS infrastructure. Yeah, and considering all these things, for the faster to market products, which means when you so when so they want to speed up the building or developments and release cycles and offload the operational overhead of overhead of the backends and backends. So with all these, the developers can quickly and easily build applications and the new features and ship them to the production. And all these automated tests and the release processes that reduce errors, and so the products become actually the market fast already. And by automating all these test procedures and monitoring at every single stage of the development cycle, so I can say these the modern applications are reliable at deployment, which means any issue can be evaluated and addressed in real time. So the modern applications have a lot of moving parts and many microservices with unique databases, all running features, releasing features frequently. So operating applications with serverless services eliminates the environment management and makes it really easy to scale and faster to develop. So that's what we call as the as serverless as possible. So we always approach the serverless architecture to the reduce the time and time to develop and frequently push all the changes or the features to the production. And the continuous delivery has become a key aspect of the software development. So companies are evolving from month releases to weekly, and sometimes it's even a couple of times per day. So you do a couple of releases per day. So all this comes with the to address the faster to market products demands. So considering all those things, it's really important to make sure that how sure that how well your development platforms can provide these features. So these are the some of the advantages or the plus points that you get from the Amplify. So Amplify frame the platform. So you get the as we discussed, the easy to use set of libraries that helps you to easily connect your front end and back end. So you can build much sophisticated features with simple lines of code, which reduces the time to implement. Uh, and also the Amplify comes with the as we discussed, a CLI tool that helps you to provision and manage and configure these resources. And with that, so sometimes you don't even need to go to the AWS console, so you can do all those things without visiting the console, and by simply running a simple commands from your the terminal. So that also actually accelerates the development, so by reducing the time to provision, manage, and do all these backend resources. um, and it gives you the faster developments and also the deployments. When your deployment cycles become more and more frequent, so sometimes it becomes a hassle or actually it yeah hassle for you to deploy it manually. And for the with Amplify, it gives you the solution for the full stack, means for both end to end development and deployments. And finally you only need to pay for what you use. So that's the biggest advantage. Yeah, and the continuous delivery. So moving on to our DevOps track. So as we discussed, the delivery cycles has become a more important and a more frequent thing. So Amplify provides you a managed service called the Amplify console. So which helps you, which you can do continuous deployments with by only going through couple of number of steps. So it actually uses a Git-based workflow for developing, deploying, and hosting your full stack web applications. And importantly, you can deploy your front end and back end, both applications, in a single workflow. So that makes sure the the synchronization between your front end and application, the front end and back end, happens correctly. And the whenever break or doesn't lack any feature from your backend, because all those both front end and backend are deployed in a single line. And it gives you the feature branch deployment feature, so where you can add or remove new features, or you can even if you even want to experiment and just try out all these features without affecting your live or the production environments. And you got the ability to easily set up your custom domains for your application through the Amplify console. And it gives you the atomic deployments and makes sure the failing of the deployments or this build process doesn't affect your the live environment or the live up and running application. Also, you got the features like the password protection, so where if there are cases where you want to share some experimental features or some private features only among a selected set of people, so you can add this enable this password protection features to achieve that. So as you can see, with this Amplify console, you can simply connect your a repository, or either it's a could be Git, Bitbucket, or GitLab, or even a code commit come from AWS. So you can simply connect to a code repository, and you just configure your build settings and just done. So you can deploy your uh, applications easily. So moving on to the quick demo, I think we can see the things we discuss in action. Let me see. I hope you guys can still see my screen.
Yes, Aska, we can see.
Okay. Uh, Here I have a, so what we're gonna do here today is I have a Angular application. So I have already created my Angular application to uh, save some time. So what we're gonna do is, so first we're gonna add so initialize an Amplify project here, and then we're gonna add hosting and authentication for our application. Then later we're gonna add the continuous deployment to our application with uh, the Amplify console. So here we have a simple application, so it's actually running. So we can see a really simple one. First of all, in order to get started with Amplify, what you need to do is you need to install the Amplify CLI globally. So this is because it's a bit of time consuming. So I have already installed it in my local PC. So you can simply visit to the Amplify documentation, and you can go to the CLI section. So it gives you the instructions of how to you can, so you can simply install the CLI globally with npm, using npm. And after installing the CLI, then you need to configure your uh, the AWS account, or your IAM account if you have already one, with your, yeah, this is a simple application. that we have a really simple one. So as I said, so what we're going to do is, so we're going to initialize this with the Amplify project, as in Amplify project. Then we're going to add a hosting, and we're going to add authentication to our application. And then later we will be connecting this with the Amplify console, so we can do the continuous deployment with the each and every commit, or the commit we do. So I can simply initialize this project with using the command amplify init. Uh, So it's gonna takes me through a couple of questions. So asking the project name. So I'm gonna stick with the default name and the environment. So as I mentioned in the slide, so we can define an environment, whatever the environment we want. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead with the development environment, and it asks me the which code edit I'm using. So in this case, it's Visual Studio Code, and which project it's a JavaScript project, and the framework it's Angular, and the source directory, so it's, yeah, the default one, and the distribution directory. So as you can see, by default it says the dist, but when it comes to Angular, so if you haven't changed the default configurations, it's gonna create a subdirectory under the dist directory. So I'm gonna create a subdirectory as well, which with the same name, so amplify demo, and the build command, yes, and the start command, yes. Yes, then it asks me if I want to use an AWS profile. So you have to use the profile that you configured during the Amplify configure process. So for now, for this demo, so I have configured a profile for that. So I'm going to choose this Amplify demo profile. Yeah, then it starts creating the or initializing this the Amplify project locally in my local environment. Yeah, this is gonna take a couple of seconds. Yeah, it says so I successfully initialized my Amplify project. So as you can see, it made some changes in my code as well. So it created a folder called Amplify, so which holds all the configurations that I provisioned locally. So this holds all the the cloud formation templates, and then this is later used to build and create the resources in the AWS account, or my in console. Also, it adds an AWS export file, which also holds a set of configurations related to my Amplify project. So all these are newly created, so Amplify related files, and to the it automatically updates the Git ignore as well. So which we don't need to we don't need these things to be published to our source controller, whatever the platform we want to publish our code. Well, so as the next step, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first add Amplify hosting. So I can hosting for my application, so which can host to host. So what I can do is I can simply add Amplify add hosting. So that's gonna add. So it asks me whether I want to use Amplify Consoler or just Amazon CloudFront and S3. So first I'm going to go with the CloudFront and just S3. Then later we can see how we can configure it with the console. So I'm going to choose, and so since it's the dev environment, so I'll only be needing S3, and it's without HTTPS. So HTTP would be fine. Yeah. So it's gonna ask me the bucket name. So I'm gonna stick with the default name. So in your case, if you want to need a more meaningful one, so you can define your name. So it asks me the index doc, and for error doc, since it's in single page application, so I'm going to give it the index.html. Yeah. So now it actually created or configured hosting locally, so which means it's not yet published, which means so I don't there's no way I can visit to a live URL. So also at the same time I'm going to add the authentication as well. So I can add the authentication by simply running Amplify add auth. So this sets up a cognito user pool with my application. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead with the default configurations. And for the so how do I want to sign in users? I'm going to use email as a unique factor. So for now, okay, I don't need any advanced things, advanced settings. And one thing to remember, as it warns you, so you have to be really careful when you configure these things, because you cannot later you cannot change any of these configurations even if you want to. So now I have added hosting and the authentication for my application. So I can simply, if you want, I can simply check what are the services or what are the status of my application by running simply amplify status. So yeah, so that gives me the status of the things that I have added. So I have added hosting and the authentication. So it says the operation is, I only have created these the resources. So in order to publish these things, so what I need to do is just run amplify publish. So this amplify publish command, so it creates all the resources in your cloud environment. So then you can start interacting with these resources from your client applications. Yeah, and it's gonna take a couple of minutes. So yeah, it asks me the confirmation, summarizing the things that I have provisioned. So I'm gonna say yes. So you can see it starts bootstrapping these the cloud formation templates which I have created locally, and start provisioning all these resources in the cloud. Yeah, I think meantime we can go through the documentation. So if you want to follow the so you can just type the amplified documentation, so in order to see how we can integrate this authentication. So I just want to client libraries, and so I have now I have added authentication to my application. So I just need to way to implement this implement a UI component that can interact with my backend resource. So, so this is the documentation for the authentication. So once you are done with the all the configuration, so you need to install the AWS Amplify library. So that's a client library that comes, and you need to. So this is for the. So you just need to do some configurations, import some configurations, and then you can start with the interacting your backend resources. So in order to use the this UI component, so the components that is given by, or these are already given by this Amplify. So you additionally you need to install this the AWS Amplify dash Amplify UI Angular module. So that gives you the authentication module that you can interact with your backend. I think maybe it should be done now, or no, still ongoing. And yeah, okay, this takes some time, I think, because it needs to provision all these resources in your, yeah, okay, it's almost done. And you can see it gives me a endpoint for hosting my application. So this is the a URL given by Amplify, which I can view my live application. So let's start or wait until the build is finished. So it's going to build all my applications and deploy that to the S3. Yeah, also the meantime, I think we can go to the AWS console as well to see the resources that has been provisioned for us by Amplify console. Let me quickly in the, yes, this is the account. So if you go to Cognito, so the authentication uses the Cognito to authenticate your users. So if you go to Cognito, you should be able to see the, yeah, this is the user pool that has been created for us.
Aska, we can see only your the code window. Maybe you should pull that window into the screen where the code is running.
Yeah, that's in the same window. Now I can you see it now or
No, still we are seeing the code editor with the status of the Amplify.
okay, I think maybe it's because I'm only sharing the
Yeah, I think now it open up the tab. Yes.
okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
now we can see it. Yeah.
Now I think you should be able to see the both my code editor
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah. Now
browser as
we
well.
can
Okay.
see. Now we can see.
Okay, my
Perfect.
bad. I had only shared the only one frame. Okay. Yeah, this is a simple application we had. So now it's deployed to deployed to AWS. So you can see the live URL. Also, I think as you can see, so uh, an amplifier, the Cognito user pool has been created. So this is the name we saw, a random name. So just so that also has been created. So if you want to see the hosted bucket, so you just can just go to the bucket, and you should be able to see the, yeah, it should be this one, the bucket that's created for you. Oh, and okay, now what we're gonna do is, so we're gonna add our hosted. So we're gonna add our the UI component and start with authenticating our users. So first we need to install these libraries. Let me quickly pick it up. Yes, and I'm going to save under my dependencies. So these Amplify libraries are the AWS Amplify and AWS UI Angular. So these are the basically the libraries that you want to integrate your UI component and then later to connect your front end with the back end. So if in case if you are using, if you are not happy with this the UI that is provided by Angular, and if you only want to, or you want to use your custom UIs, then you just don't need to install this the Amplify UI Angular module. So you, or what you need to do is you need to only install this AWS Amplify library. Okay, that will quickly install these libraries in my local machine. Yeah, while it installs, so once it is done, then you need to import the all these configurations to your application. So you just need to go to your app module. So I have already imported and commented it out here. So you just can comment that out. So you just need to import this UI component module and the amplify, and also the configuration file, so that you can find it in the under the source directory. And also you need to import it under the declare the import section as well to use these libraries. And let's see, we're done with that. And then in order to use these UI components, you just need to pick this the Amplify Authenticator selector. So you can get all those things from the documentation. So it gives you a step-by-step guidance on how you can add and integrate these things. So, and I can save it. I can, yeah. And I forgot to mention one thing as a one last thing. So if you are working with Angular, this is only for the Angular. So, and if it's your Angular version is greater than Angular 6, 6, so you just need to add. So you just need to add the polyfill support for the global and the browser objects, because after the amplify after the Angular 6 version 6, so the Angular team has stopped giving the support for that comes with Angular. So what you need to do is you just need to go to this polyfill.ts file, which you can find in the same level of the index HTML. Go to the below and you just need to add this the piece of code. Yeah, so this give you the global and processor window support in your local application. Again, you can save it and let's see if it's done. Okay. Okay, so now it installed let me build my application. So it have installed all the relevant libraries. So after this build, we should be able to see the UI component. Yes, it's successful. And let's go to local environment and maybe just refresh it. No, let's see why. Maybe I have to rebuild again. Yeah, everything looks good. Let's see. Okay, let's go. Still, I'm getting the error though. Okay, well, here we go. So this is the UI component that is given by the Amplify. So you can even going forward even customize all these things, the colors and the typography to align it consistently to your application, the rest of the components. So what I can do is now I can go ahead and create uh, users and just sign up. So it gives you a way to reset password, or even, so this is to sign up, sign in, and if I want to sign up, so that handles everything. So it makes really easy for you. So now what I'm going to do is, so since I have, so what we did so far is, so we created so we initialize our application with Amplify. So we added hosting, we added authentication. So we added also we installed the client libraries and added a UI component. So everything is fine. So I just want to first, before that, I just want to commit all these things and push those code to the GitHub. Then we can start integrating it with the Amplify console. First, let me add the all those things and say initial commit. And before that, I need to create a repo for that. So I'm gonna name it as Amplify demo. Yeah, it's available, and let's create. Yeah, so I just need to push all my codes to GitHub. Okay, done. So if I reload here, so this, okay, here we go. And to connect this with your or create a new Amplify console or to connect it with your Amplify console, what you got to do is there are two ways. I can either you can go to the Amplify or AWS console, just search for the Amplify and go there and create a Amplify console project, or either you can simply run Ampli Amplify console from your command line, which will create a console application for you. Yeah, it created and pops. Okay, so this is the application that is created for you with the same name of your application. So now I just need to connect my Git repository so that then I can deploy my code whenever I push the changes to the Git. So connect branch. So now I need to connect my repository. So it successfully authenticated my with GitHub. Okay, it's fetching my repositories. Yeah, it's amplified demo which I just created, and the branch. So for now I'm going to go ahead with the master branch because that's the only branch that I have. So if you have multiple branches, for a dev branch for the development and staging branch for the staging, so you can do all those things with it. It's going to connect my branch with that. And yeah, select. So and I need to select a amplify console, a service role for to do the deployment. So if this is the first time you are coming here, so you just need to create a new service role by simply clicking on the service role, and yeah, and you can click on the amplify and it will create a service role for you. So I have already created, which is called the amplify console backend role. And for the backend environment, I'm not going to choose one, and let's. So this is the a build setting. So the build YAML file, so which you can, maybe I can, uh, if you the build setting that will deploy your application. So I just can go ahead with the default settings and click next. Yeah, I need to choose my dev environment. Yeah, and I can simply run save and deploy. So it will start a new deployment. Yeah, so it started a new deployment for me. And I think I missed one thing here, because this build will fail, because since we are using Angular, I found there was an issue with this build command. So in order to run an Angular application, I think you need to run the backend environment node version 12, otherwise it will fail. So for me it failed a couple of times. So what I can do is I can switch back to the node version 12, so before run the commands, and then I can go ahead. So I can let me cancel this build. It cancelled, and I'm going to redeploy it. Here this process actually gonna take a bit of time, because it gonna provision all these the resources, build, and we haven't set up the testings, and it will deploy and verify. So this is a simple way of integrating your amplify project with the amplify console. Also, these are the things that we discussed, so we can add access control to your project. So if you have any private thing to share with among only among your team, and also you can set up notifications for these, and also you have the ability to add the environment variables, so you can handle it with the console itself as well. Yeah, that's basically. So I think let's see if it quickly builds, so we can. Yeah, once it is built, so you can simply go to. It gives you a unique URL for your the build environment. So which is prefixed by the branch. So in here, since I'm using the master branch, it uses a master branch and comes with some amplify.com domain, so which you can visit later once the deployment is completed. I think since I think since I took more time than expected, I think we can stop from here. Uh, since the build takes time, yeah. Let me go back to the slides. Yeah, and the demo. And alternatively, and also if you want to follow all those things and find more things about the Amplify, you can just go to the Amplify documentation, so which is the best documentation for Amplify, which also which gives you a nice a step-by-step way to integrate with your any of your application, it Angular, React, or it could be iOS or Android, any of. Also, I have added here some useful links or some of the articles that I found useful that you can go through, which also which describe some of the use cases and the things that you can do, the amazing things that you can do with the Amplify, using the Amplify and the console. Yeah, I think that's all for the day. I think I have covered everything, and you can shoot your questions if you have any, or even you
Thank,
can use the
yeah,
comments.
thanks, Aska. That was a great session. Like full stack application development demo. That I think it has been really valuable for our audience. Yeah, as Aska mentioned, like we can open up for a Q&A. So you can unmute yourself and ask the question if you have.
So you can basically ask any questions related to things that we discussed, or related to the libraries or these the CLI tools or the console or whatever thing I can answer you. Or even if it's related to Angular, it's fine. Still, I can answer you.
Aska, I have a small question. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned that we can do testing, like mocking the API.
Yes.
So that's a great feature. Like how is it going to mock the entire thing? Like let's say if you have an API, how does it work? The mocking
Yeah.
functionality.
Yeah, so for me, that's the coolest feature I have seen in the Amplify. So with the simple command Amplify mock, so that actually runs the entire API locally for you. So as I mentioned, not only the API. So if you have DynamoDB instance, it creates a local instance for you, including the WebSockets and all those bunch of stuff. So that runs locally. So you can actually run the complete your backend locally with the simple command mock. So that's the coolest feature I see in the Amplify CLI.
Yeah, that's fantastic because as
Yeah,
developers, we really want to like test it beforehand. We deploy anything.
of course. So you can identify if there are any mistakes that you have made, or you can
Exactly. Yeah.
add or modify all those the configurations before you publish them to cloud. So you can make sure you're only deploying the correct code or the bugless code.
Exactly. Do we have any questions, guys? Thanks, Aska. That's really a great session. Like a total code loan project. That's fantastic. Thanks for your time.